I'm Mason Mount. You're listening to the London is Blue podcast.
And if you're going to ask me what's going to happen with the goalkeeper, that's probably the most difficult question of the whole summer, to be quite honest with you.
I was going to say that because we've obviously been linked with pretty much every goalkeeper, whether it's Oblak, Ter Stegen, and Ben Foster, and everything in between. But it sounds like in your article, Czech and Lalashon are drawing up two lists if they can move Kepa, if they can't. So instead of asking you to tell me who they're going to sign, because that's the impossible question, it's how likely do you think it is that Chelsea can move Kepa? And is that really the key to getting a top target, is moving Kepa?
Yes. Getting a top target, I think, is completely dependent on moving Kepa. You can't sign a 50, 60, 70, 80 million pound goalkeeper and pay him the wages you'd have to pay him with Kepa still sort of at the club being paid by Chelsea. I mean, look, they might be able to loan him out and bring in a top goalkeeper, because if you can get someone to pay all of his wages, at least then he's off the wage bill, and you would get some sort of loan fee and whatnot. But if he has to stay at the club, then I don't see there's any possibility of them bringing in a top goalkeeper, as it were, at all, and they would have to sign a sort of bridging goalkeeper to almost get them through the interim period to a stage where they might be able to then get rid of Kepa. But yeah, it's really difficult. I look, this is me guessing now because I don't work in the market, so I don't actually know. But having spoken to a lot of people who do work in the market and just from assessing it myself, I don't possibly see how they can sell Kepa this summer. Mm-hmm. Because 2 years into his 7-year contract, if he was signed at 72 million, then you're saying at the moment he's worth about 52 million in terms of making a break even on the books, which is what they're not going to want to sell him for less than a break even. So you've got to sell him, you've got to get at least 52 million. Otherwise you've made an accounting loss on him, which Chelsea so rarely do these days, if ever. You could loan him because you could put him on a year's loan, and then his fee is the fee you would have to sell him for next year would come down another 10 million on the amortization of it. So you could loan him for a year and then hope that you could get a buyer at around 40 million next year. You could loan him for 2 years and try and get a buyer for around 30 million. But they've tried this with a few players recently, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You know, they got the agreement in place with Morata before they loaned him back, and that's worked well. Bakayoko, though, they've been doing this with Bakayoko, keep loaning him out to bring the value down a bit year by year on the books, and then hope you can sell him for that. And it hasn't happened on Bakayoko. Similar, they could have, funnily enough, they could have done it on Batshuayi at one stage after he'd been to Dortmund and probably actually made a profit on him. But now they're at a stage with Batshuayi where I don't think they'll get the book value. So Kepa's a nightmare. Quite frankly, Kepa's a nightmare for them. What they do with Kepa is nightmarish. But I do think one thing they will have in the back of their minds is that early this season, I think a lot of people were doubting Pulisic, both outside and some inside the club were worried about Pulisic early on and whether he was going to settle. Now, obviously, Kepa's been at the club 2 years now, and Pulisic had only been at the club a few months. But the fact that Pulisic's undoubted talent has come out with time, I wonder whether there'll be people at the club who think that they should give Kepa a little bit longer and hope that his undoubted talent will come out. But personally, with Lampard as manager, I think I just don't see Kepa getting that opportunity now. It's really difficult.
One of the other goalkeeping names that seems to be linked quite frequently, and I'm asking more to understand how serious we should take a link like this, is Andre Onana from Ajax. Is that more down to the fact that we've done business with Ajax recently and it's been easy to work with them, or is it actually a legitimate target for us?
Yeah, look, Onana's one they've looked at for sure, like a lot of clubs have. Chelsea have developed a very good relationship with Ajax, not just over Ziyech, but before then, was it Castillo who had gone over there on loan? I don't know at what level. I don't know who the relationship is between. I'll be honest, but there's definitely a healthy relationship between those two clubs. So yeah, for sure they've looked at Onana. I get the impression Onana's probably more likely to stay for one more year and sign a contract extension. I think a lot of clubs like Onana without actually being sold on the fact that he's top level. And his price range kind of falls in between. It's not cheap enough that you can sign him and take a bit of a risk on him, because it's probably around 30, 35 million. If you were 20 million, then I think a lot of clubs would be willing to maybe take a little bit of a risk when they're not totally sure on him. But he's just a bit more expensive than that, but then he's not top end either. So he falls in between. I can see him moving to the Premier League eventually, but probably not this summer. And Chelsea have definitely looked at him, and Chelsea have definitely scouted him and talked about him. At the moment, I'd be surprised if he ended up a Chelsea player. But, you know, who knows? Who knows?